The bold and the beautiful erupts with seismic emotional energy as Stephanie Forrester, a woman long believed to have departed forever, makes a jaw-dropping return just as Eric Forrester prepares to officially leave the canvas, closing out one of daytime television's most legendary eras. But before he steps away from the world he built, the family he shaped, and the legacy he carried for decades, the matriarch who once ruled the Forrester kingdom with unmatched fire resurfaces to alter the trajectory of every character who has ever lived under the shadow of the Forrester name. And it all unfolds in a whirlwind of tension, heartbreak, revelation, and redemption that begins at the precise moment the Forrester clan gathers in the mansion to honor Eric's final wish, an intimate farewell that is supposed to celebrate his life, his accomplishments, his failures, his victories, and the love he shared with the people who define the Forrester legacy. But what none of them anticipate is that Eric's exit will become the most unforgettable moment in the family's history, not because of sadness or mourning, but because of the impossible, the miraculous, the emotionally shattering return of Stephanie Forrester, a woman whose death had long been accepted, mourned, and woven permanently into the tapestry of Forrester lore, making her sudden appearance not just shocking but reality-altering, as though time, destiny, and love itself have worked together to orchestrate her reemergence. At the exact moment Eric prepares to say his final goodbye, and as Stephanie steps into the room, her poise intact, her voice unmistakable, her strength radiating through the very air, every member of the family is struck silent, frozen in a mixture of disbelief and overwhelming emotional release. For here stands the woman who defended the Forrester empire with fierce loyalty, who guided Eric, challenged him, fought him, loved him, and shaped him into the man who would go on to transform the fashion landscape. And it is her presence, more than anything else, that sends Eric into an emotional spiral of gratitude, closure, and profound peace. Because while he has faced his mortality with dignity and acceptance, something within him remained unsettled. Perhaps the lingering wish to share one last moment with the woman who had once been his anchor, his adversary, his soulmate, his wife in spirit even after divorce, and the only person who ever truly matched the intensity of his passion for life and creation. And now that she stands before him, Eric's entire demeanor shifts, the weight of his impending exit suddenly easier to bear, the pain of letting go softened by the extraordinary gift of this reunion. And as the family, Brooke, Ridge, Steffi, Thorne, Donna, and others struggle to process the unimaginable vision before their eyes, Stephanie steps forward, her gaze piercing yet warm, filled with a blend of sternness and affection that only she could deliver, and she tells them that she has returned for one last purpose, to ensure that Eric does not walk away from this world or this family with regret, fear, or unfinished emotional business. Because while death may be inevitable, love transcends every boundary that separates the living from the departed, and the bond she and Eric share is powerful enough to manifest at the very moment he needs her most. A narrative twist that resonates deeply with the show's longtime viewers who understand the significance of Stephanie's presence in Eric's journey. But the moment is not merely spiritual or symbolic. It is intensely human, as Eric reaches out to touch her hand, visibly trembling, overcome with a tidal wave of emotion, and Stephanie, with characteristic strength, reminds him of who he is and what he has built, offering both closure and reassurance as she tells him that the Forrester family, despite its chaos and turmoil, despite betrayals, rivalries, and heartbreaks, remains united because of the foundation they built together, a foundation rooted in creativity, passion, and the relentless belief that family, however fractured, is worth fighting for. And as the two stand together, the room fills with memories of their battles, their laughter, their losses, their triumphs, and the characters watching them feel the same waves of recollection. For even Brooke Logan, once Stephanie's fiercest enemy, feels the gravitational pull of the moment, remembering all the years of conflict that eventually birthed a surprising mutual respect. And it is Brooke who approaches first, tears streaming down her face, acknowledging that Stephanie's presence is not only a gift to Eric, but to the entire family, a chance to settle old wounds and reinforce the emotional cords that tie them all together. And as Brooke steps aside, Ridge, Stephanie's firstborn, her pride, her frustration, her legacy, approaches, his voice cracking as he asks if she is real, if this moment is truly happening, and Stephanie simply touches his cheek and tells him that a mother never really leaves, that she has watched over him, guided him, and now returns to ensure that he carries the Forrester name with honor, not arrogance, compassion, not entitlement, and wisdom, not anger, words that strike Ridge deeply, triggering a flood of emotion that he struggles to control. But the reunion does not end there, for each member of the family receives a moment with Stephanie, each a thread that reconnects past and present, weaving together the emotional tapestry of the Forrester legacy. And when all is said and done, Stephanie finally turns back to Eric, the man who has loved many, but never loved anyone quite the way he loved her. And she tells him that his time has come, not with dread, not with fear, but with peace, because he has lived a life that mattered, created beauty that will outlive him, raised children who will carry his name long after he is gone, and touched hearts in ways he never realized. And then she delivers the line that will forever echo in the halls of the Forrester estate. I came to take you home. A sentence so simple yet so profound that it breaks the emotional dam within the entire family. But Eric, instead of grieving or resisting, smiles, genuine, serene, and accepting. And in that instant, the audience understands that this is not a tragic ending, but a poetic one. A full circle moment where the great patriarch exits the stage hand in hand with the woman who defined so much of his life. But before he departs, he addresses the family, offering them his final words, not a long speech, but a heartfelt message urging them to love one another, fight for one another, and honor the Forrester legacy, not by following in his footsteps, but by forging their own, creating beauty in the world just as he once did. And with that, Eric takes Stephanie's hand. And in a breathtaking blend of emotional realism and ethereal symbolism, the two walk together through the mansion's iconic double doors, disappearing into a golden light that signifies the end of Eric's earthly journey and the beginning of something transcendent. And as the doors close behind them, the family collapses into each other's arms, overwhelmed by grief yet comforted by the knowledge that Eric did not leave alone, but was accompanied by the only person strong enough, powerful enough, and beloved enough to guide him into the next chapter, marking a monumental turning point in the show's history, an unforgettable farewell that not only closes the book on Eric Forrester's illustrious tenure, but also reignites the emotional spirit of the bold and the beautiful, reminding viewers that at its core, the show is not just about fashion, rivalry, or scandal, but about love, legacy, and the enduring power of family. And as the episode fades to black, fans are left breathless, devastated, and profoundly moved by a storyline that honors the past, embraces the present, and paves the way for a future where the Forrester family must learn to navigate life, leadership, and legacy without the patriarch who built their world, but forever influenced by the unforgettable moment when Stephanie Forrester returned to take Eric home. But even as the Forrester family grapples with the emotional aftershocks of Eric's departure with Stephanie, the mansion becomes a place thick with echoes, memories, and unresolved tensions that begin to rise to the surface the moment the golden light fades and reality settles back into the present. Because while Eric's exit felt peaceful, poetic, even divinely orchestrated, the consequences of his absence begin to ripple through the family almost immediately, starting with Ridge, who attempts to maintain his composure as the new de facto patriarch of the Forrester dynasty. But the weight of responsibility settles over him like a storm cloud, filling him with an overwhelming mixture of pride, fear, and insecurity. For despite his confidence, Ridge secretly wonders whether he can ever live up to his father's legacy, and those doubts only intensify when Brooke tries to comfort him, reminding him that Eric believed in him more than anyone. But even her reassurance cannot silence the internal voice whispering that he is now the face of a family on the brink of emotional upheaval, a company entering an uncertain new era, and a legacy that demands constant vigilance and strength to maintain. And while Ridge struggles inwardly, Steffi steps into a more assertive position, her instinct screaming that the family must unite, stabilize, and protect the Forrester Creations brand before internal conflict or opportunistic rivals can exploit Eric's absence. And as she attempts to gather everyone's focus, her resolve only intensifies, particularly as she recalls the way Stephanie looked at her during the brief moment they shared earlier. The pride in Stephanie's eyes, the confidence that Steffi had always been the one who embodied the fierce, resilient spirit of the Forrester women. And Steffi embraces that unspoken torch, promising silently that she will not allow the company or the family to fracture. But even as she outwardly radiates strength, she crumbles inside because the loss of her grandfather feels like losing a piece of her identity, the man who encouraged her leadership long before she believed in it herself. And that emotional torment becomes even more complicated when Thomas approaches, struggling with his own guilt and uncertainty, wondering whether he had disappointed Eric too many times, whether his past mistakes overshadowed the redemption he had worked so hard to earn. And when he confesses these insecurities to Steffi, she firmly reminds him that Eric saw the best in him, saw the artist he was destined to become, and that Eric's final wish would be for Thomas to rise above his past and channel his creativity into the future of Forrester Creations. But even her encouragement cannot entirely ease the burden he feels, especially when he steps into Eric's office for the first time since the farewell, touching the desk, the chair, the walls adorned with decades of memories, and feeling as though the room itself breathes with Eric's essence, leaving Thomas overwhelmed by the realization that he now carries part of Eric's artistic legacy on his shoulders, an honor that feels both inspiring and terrifying. And as the two siblings wrestle with their responsibilities, Hope stands quietly in the background of the mansion, heartbroken not only by Eric's exit, but by the emotional chaos rippling through Thomas, because she sees how deeply he feels the loss, how much it shakes him. And while she tries to comfort him, she also finds herself confronted by her own grief, remembering the support Eric once gave her during difficult times, the kindness he offered even when the family was divided, and Hope begins to understand that Eric's death marks the end of an era she never fully appreciated until now. And the emotional weight in the mansion grows even heavier when Donna collapses in tears, unable to process the loss of the man she loved so deeply, the man she believed she would grow old with, and Katie rushes to her side, holding her as Donna repeatedly asks why Eric didn't stay, why he couldn't fight longer, why he had to leave now when their love was still so alive. And Katie gently reminds her of what they witnessed, that Eric did not die in fear or alone, but with Stephanie guiding him home. And for Donna, this realization creates a painful internal conflict, because she knows that Stephanie was Eric's great love, the woman who shaped his life in ways Donna could never replicate. But she also knows that Eric loved her sincerely and passionately in a way that was uniquely theirs, and reconciling these truths becomes one of the hardest emotional battles she has ever fought. But as Donna tries to calm herself, Bridget arrives, shaken, devastated, unable to comprehend losing her father in such an extraordinary, surreal way. And when she learns that Stephanie appeared, her shock is compounded by confusion, by disbelief, by the lingering ache of knowing she was not present for the final moments, and she lashes out in pain, questioning why she wasn't there, why fate robbed her of one last chance to hold her father's hand. And it takes both Katie and Brooke to soothe her, explaining that Eric's exit was orchestrated by forces none of them could control, that he left peacefully, and that he would not want her to punish herself. And slowly Bridget begins to settle. But the sorrow remains etched into her eyes, a grief that will take time, perhaps years, to fully process. And as the night deepens, the family gradually disperses, leaving the mansion bathed in quiet candlelight, the lingering scent of Eric's favorite cologne drifting through the air like a ghostly reminder of the man who had lived and breathed within those walls. And in the stillness, a soft breeze seems to move through the room, as though Stephanie herself is offering one final blessing before disappearing completely. And while the families return to their homes, the emotional reverberations follow them, with Ridge sitting alone in his living room, holding a glass of scotch he cannot bring himself to drink, staring into space as he hears Stephanie's words echoing in his mind, urging him to lead with strength and humility, while Brooke watches him from across the room, knowing that while Ridge tries to appear composed, he is quietly breaking, and she places a gentle hand on his shoulder, offering the silent support he needs but refuses to ask for. And at the same time, Steffi and Finn sit together in their home, Steffi leaning into her husband's embrace as she tears up, confessing how lost she suddenly feels without her grandfather's guiding presence, while Finn reassures her that she is strong enough to lead the family forward, and Thomas sits alone in his apartment, sketching feverishly as though pouring his grief into his art. The pencil shaking in his hand as he draws one design after another, each one dedicated to Eric's memory and hope. Watching him from behind, places a soft kiss on his shoulder, telling him that Eric would be proud of him. And even though the world outside continues normally, the Forresters feel frozen in time, suspended between the pain of the present and the legacy of the past. But the next morning arrives, as mornings always do, and with it comes a sense of obligation, of purpose, of responsibility. As the family returns to Forrester Creations for the first time without Eric stepping into the building, with a mixture of sadness and determination, and when they gather in the executive conference room, Ridge declares that despite their grief, they must honor Eric by moving forward, by protecting the brand, by strengthening the company, and while the room is heavy with sorrow, something shifts. In the energy, an unspoken agreement that they will carry Eric's legacy not as a burden, but as a mission, a driving force that will guide the next chapter of Forrester Creations. And as the meeting ends, Ridge steps into Eric's office, closing the door behind him, letting the silence wash over him before he whispers, "I'll take it from here, Dad." A vow that marks the beginning of a new era, one shaped by grief, unity, and the eternal presence of Eric and Stephanie, whose love story came full circle in a farewell that left the world breathless, and the Forrester family forever changed. And yet, even as Ridge takes the reins and Steffi steps into her newfound leadership role, the emotional gravity of Eric and Stephanie's final departure lingers like an unshakable shadow, influencing every decision, every glance, every interaction within the family, because the void left behind is not simply physical. It is emotional, spiritual, and symbolic, representing the end of one era and the daunting responsibility of forging a new one without the guiding hands that once shaped their lives. And as Ridge walks through the halls of Forrester Creations, he cannot escape the memories imprinted on the walls, the echo of Eric's laughter in the boardroom, the subtle wisdom in his voice, the unwavering presence that made even the most chaotic moments feel anchored. And these memories both inspire and terrify him, fueling a determination to honor his father while simultaneously amplifying the fear of falling short. And Steffi, moving through the design studios, feels that same weight pressing on her shoulders, the challenge of continuing the Forrester name without Eric's mentorship a daunting prospect. Yet there is also a spark of courage in her, a resolve to prove that she embodies the strength and creativity Stephanie saw in her long ago. And this courage radiates subtly through the family, touching each member in a unique way. Even Thomas, whose artistic mind now channels grief into purpose. His sketches more inspired, more daring, and more evocative than ever before, as if Eric's spirit guides his hand in every stroke, reminding him that the legacy of the Forrester name is not just about power, wealth, or recognition, but about creating beauty that resonates across generations. And as the siblings convene in the mansion one evening to discuss the company's future, their conversation oscillates between strategy and vulnerability, laughter and tears, frustration and hope. Because in every word spoken, every glance exchanged, there is a subtle acknowledgement of what has been lost and a silent promise of what they will strive to become. And it is in these moments, amid grief and responsibility, that the enduring power of Eric and Stephanie's influence becomes most apparent, for they have left behind more than memories. They have left a blueprint for love, leadership, and resilience, a template that, if followed with courage and compassion, will ensure that the Forrester family and their creations not only survive, but flourish, carrying the indelible mark of two legendary figures whose presence, though no longer physical, will forever guide, inspire, and shape the lives of everyone who calls Forrester home. And as night falls over Los Angeles, the mansion quiet, the city lights twinkling in the distance, the Forresters gather once more, sharing a quiet moment of reflection, feeling both the ache of loss and the warmth of enduring love, understanding that though Eric has officially left their world, his spirit, strengthened by Stephanie's final miraculous return, will forever remain at the heart of the family and the legacy they will continue to protect, honor, and expand.